Welcome to Connected Through Change. Men supporting menopause, two voices, one journey. Your host is Russell Betts, author of the international best-selling book, The Good Husband's Guide to Menopause, and founder of the Connected Through Change movement. Each week, you'll hear both the men's and women's perspectives, so you can understand what's really happening beneath the surface and learn how to stay steady, supportive, and connected through one of life's biggest transitions. If you want clarity, confidence, and a stronger relationship during menopause and beyond, you're in the right place. Let's begin.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for spending a little time with me today. I'd like to begin with a scene that may feel surprisingly familiar. It's a weekday evening. Dinner is over. The dishwasher is humming. One of you is putting a few things away while the other is sitting on the sofa, scrolling without really paying attention. The television isn't on. No one is asking for a ride. No homework needs checking. No lunches need packing. No one is calling your name from another room. The house has become quiet. You glance across the room at the person you've shared so much of your life with. And for just a moment, something feels different. Not dramatic, not alarming, just different. The silence feels heavier than it used to. Not the silence after an argument. You know that silence, and not the comfortable silence of two people reading in the same room. This is harder to describe. It's almost as if the room has changed its atmosphere. Nothing has happened. Yet something feels different. Sometimes that feeling lasts only a few seconds. Sometimes it follows you for weeks. You notice it while driving somewhere together. You notice it walking through the grocery store. You notice it sitting beside each other at a restaurant while waiting for the food to arrive. You probably don't mention it. What would you even say? I think the silence feels different. That doesn't seem like the sort of sentence people say out loud, so it stays unspoken. I wonder how many couples have quietly carried that feeling without realizing someone else has carried it too. For many years, life had a different rhythm. There was always another deadline, another practice, another birthday party, another project, another bill, another decision, another reason to keep moving. Your relationship existed inside all of that movement. Sometimes the movement was exhausting, sometimes beautiful, usually both. I think of those years as fireworks energy, not because they were perfect, not because they were always exciting, but because they were bright, busy, demanding, always asking something of you. There was always another burst of activity lighting up the sky. Sometimes you barely had time to notice one before the next one arrived. Then, slowly, almost without permission, the pace begins to change. The children become more independent, or they leave home altogether. The calendar starts showing unexpected empty spaces. Saturday mornings become strangely open. You finish dinner and realize there isn't anywhere you have to be. And that's often when this quiet first becomes noticeable. Not because the relationship suddenly changed overnight, but because there is finally enough stillness to hear something you couldn't hear before. Most people aren't prepared for that. We've spent so many years measuring our lives by activity that stillness can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. You might find yourself wondering whether you've run out of things to talk about. or whether you're supposed to be feeling something different, or whether everyone else's relationship still looks the way yours used to. Those thoughts tend to arrive quietly, almost apologetically, as though you're not even sure you're allowed to think them. Perhaps you've caught yourself planning something not because you genuinely wanted to, but because the quiet itself felt unsettling. A trip, a project, a conversation that didn't really need to happen tonight. Not because anything was wrong, simply because movement feels familiar. Stillness doesn't. I don't think people talk about this season very often. Not because it's rare. I suspect it's incredibly common. I think we simply don't have many words for it. When people talk about relationships, they usually talk about conflict, or romance, or communication, or intimacy, but very few conversations make room for this quieter experience. The feeling that the relationship hasn't necessarily become worse. It has simply become quieter. And quiet can be difficult to interpret. Maybe that's why this conversation matters. Not because it explains anything. Not because it solves anything. Simply because some experiences change the moment we discover we aren't the only person who has noticed them. If you've ever sat in the same room as someone you've loved for years and wondered why the silence suddenly feels different, if you've ever struggled to explain that feeling, even to yourself, if you've ever thought, I don't know exactly what this is, then perhaps today wasn't about finding an answer. Perhaps it was simply about finding language. The house became quieter. And somewhere along the way, you noticed the quiet between the two of you as well. Maybe that's been true for longer than you realized. Sometimes that's all recognition is. Not finding an answer. Simply discovering that what you've been carrying has a name. Thank you for spending these few minutes with me. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on Connected Through Change. Remember, it takes two voices to walk one journey, and you don't have to navigate this alone. To go deeper, grab Russell's international best-selling book, The Good Husband's Guide to Menopause. Explore the weekly blog or take the Communication Clarity Assessment at connectedthroughchange.com. Stay steady, stay connected, and I'll see you in the next episode.